Welcome to the Voice of Retail. I'm your host, Michael LeBlanc. This podcast is brought to you in conjunction with Retail Council of Canada. Marc Saltzman is a self-proclaimed technology evangelist. As a super popular and well-respected freelance journalist for over 25 publications, including USA Today and Costco Connection magazine, Marc covers innovation in consumer tech and translates what he calls geek speak into street speak. Today on the Voice of Retail, I catch up with Marc and we get the scoop on the latest trends in consumer technology. First, Marc gives us a highlight reel of the recent CES conference, a show that has been the global stage for technology innovation for over 50 years. Then, we look at what to expect this year in the tech and electronics retail space.
And I didn't find there was one big trend as we've seen in previous years, where one year it's like, okay, it's all about TVs. And another year it's like, all right, smart home gear, that's it. But it was kind of a real mix, a healthy mix of various consumer electronics trends and products to populate those trends. So yeah, some of the big ones were still home entertainment and smart home. Automotive tech increasingly plays a key role, maybe not as relevant to your listeners.
Let's listen in now. Marc, welcome to the Voice of Retail podcast. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm great, Michael. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
You and I were sharing off mic. I think the last time we saw each other in real life, we were passing ships in the night in the hallway at CP24 or something like that. That was a while ago, right?
IRL, as they say, in real life. That was, pre-pandemic for sure.
You know, it's funny. I was on CP24 this week, actually, and it's funny because, at least from my perspective as an industry expert, you come on and you get a few seconds or a minute or two. And it used to be, you spend a couple hours to get a minute or two. Now, I got to say, I flip on the camera, you say basically the same stuff, and I'm in and out of there in 5 minutes. So maybe it's a bit of an upside.
There are some advantages. Yeah. I agree. On one hand, it's more convenient because I don't have to drive to the station and find parking and all that. But, doing it from my home office is certainly more convenient. And I'm still going to use a little bit of makeup. I'm not going to lie. But it's just that I'm doing it myself instead of somebody else powdering me up. And then, you're right. It's quick and dirty kind of thing. But it's fun, whether it's virtual or in person. I do miss some of that. I've only done a couple of in-person hits since the start of the pandemic, and I do miss that. But there are some benefits to staying home, that's for sure.
Well, you miss that kind of, like everything else, like conferences, like whatever, trade shows, like whatever. You miss that kind of personal cues and interaction. We're all missing that, but hopefully this too shall pass. Well, listen, thanks for joining me on the podcast. And you're a very familiar name to Canadians. In fact, people from around North America. You've done so well. In fact, I've
thank you.
Seen you in one of my prior stops in the career at the Shopping Channel. I mean, you've been just, you've done such a great job. But for those that might know the name, but maybe not know all about you, just give us a bit of background of your professional, personal journey and what you do and the different places that you participate in and broadcast and how you spend your time.
Yeah. Thank you again for the kind words. So for the last 25 years, I've been a technology evangelist. I like to preach about the benefits of technology, not to say that there aren't some downsides, because there certainly are some side effects. But, most of my work is I'm a freelance journalist. So I write for about 25 different publications. I'm a weekly contributor to USA Today, which is probably my biggest gig in terms of circulation. And I've been doing that for 23 years every week. I write for AARP in the US and Zoomer in Canada. So that's for retirees, seniors. Many of which are not retired, but they are seniors. I write for Costco Connection magazine, and funny enough,
I see in that.
Funny in the States, it's now the #1 monthly magazine in terms of circulation and readership. Yeah, crazy. Yeah,
crazy. It's like the TV, but nobody reads the TV guide anymore. Remember when we used to get the TV guide to deliver that little pocket book?
Yeah, somehow it's still very successful. I'm on Costco TVs as well in the States. Like it's in a loop, but educating people about tech, at the point of sale to just make sure that they have a more of an educated, purchase, right? Because it can be very overwhelming. And that leads me to what my sort of secret sauce is, if you will. And that's breaking down geek speak into street speak. So that's what I try to do. As you can tell, I write for very mainstream publications. I don't write for techie magazines anymore. I used to write for Wired and CNET.com and all that. And I really love seeing that light bulb go off with it, whether it's through a reader, based on their email feedback or what have you. The radio shows that I produce and host in Canada and the US. In the States, it's called Tech It Out. In Canada, it's called Tech Talk. Or with the TV work that I do, I just love being able to demystify tech and not just celebrate it.
So take me back a couple of clicks in your history. Is this something you always wanted to do? Did you grow up wanting to write and be a journalist, or is it something that found you? Like, where was that intersection point?
Yeah, so that would be the latter. I had no interest in tech. I liked video games like any other young teenage boy. Sure. But no, I went to U of T. I went to University of Toronto for psych only as a backup because I thought I was going to be the drummer of a heavy metal band. And I was, and it helped pay my way through university. It helped to pay my tuition. But I was the drummer and manager of a band called Remedy. It was like hard rock, not heavy metal. It's kind of like the Cult, if you will. Yeah. Okay. And we had a lot of fun. We opened up for the Tragically Hip and the Goo Goo Dolls we played with, and Bare Naked Ladies and Our Lady Peace. So it was fun. But after I had graduated when I was 23 rather, and just realizing, okay, maybe this music thing, I've been giving it a go for so long, it's maybe not for me. And I knew I wasn't going to be a psychologist, even though that's what I did my undergrad degree in. I realized that if I wrote about video games, I would get them for free. So it was a means to an end. So I convinced a local Toronto newspaper called Toronto Computes to let me review video games, computer games, for them. And that way I didn't have to pay for them. And then the company sent them to me. And then it expanded from there. I wrote about more than just games. I branched out to other kinds of tech. Gadgets weren't really a thing yet. And of course, apps weren't yet. I was still 20 years away. But it just expanded. And then I wrote for bigger and bigger publications, going from like Toronto Computes to the Toronto Star to the National Post to USA Today and CNN.com. And then I started to do more broadcast work. In the late 90s, I was starting to host my own radio shows, and a regular on like Canadian stations like Global TV and CTV. And then I got a gig with CNN in 2001. Thank you to Peter Kent, who became a politician after his broadcast work.
I worked with Peter at CanWest Media when it was CanWest and National. He was a great guy. I
amazing
really
guy.
It.
So altruistic. Yeah, he wrote this glowing email about me to somebody at Turner Broadcasting in Atlanta. And they did offer me a full-time job. I politely declined and stayed with them as a freelance contributor, traveling to Atlanta a lot for the early 2000s. And then, it's been a lot of fun. Now I host my own show on Bloomberg in the States. And so it's been a fun journey. But no, the short answer is I did not grow up a techie. I was not into that. I was a rocker. Yeah. And
R.I.P. Meatloaf today.
Oh my God, I was really sad to hear about that. I just
what a set of pipes that guy, man.
He sure did. Now, a lot of the credit has to go to Jim Steinman, who wrote a lot of his iconic songs. But I really liked Meatloaf. And of course, he was in Rocky Horror Picture Show. I've seen the musical based on his work as well. Yeah. So I posted today that he had passed, and I already went on to Spotify and started playing some of his songs. But
I was doing the same thing this morning, and I was I actually I was thinking of Meatloaf and his family, and he sounded like he was with his family when he passed. So
only 74 years old.
Young.
What a shame.
Yeah, young. Well, listen, let's first of all, again, congratulations to your success. I mean, lots of people aspire to be, aspire to do what you do, but you've developed such a great voice, so to speak.
Thank you.
And narrative. Let's talk about, what got me thinking about you was CES, and of course the big trade show that happens in January. Many retailers and many people go to CES. I mean, it's hundreds of thousands this year. Many less went to CES, and I'm not sure.
Instead of 180,000, it was 40,000. So.
Wow! Big. It's still big numbers. There's still 40,000 people in the same place. It's still pretty impressive. Now, usually, many of my listeners, if they were buyers of electronics in the retail space or themselves just electronics fans, would have kind of made the journey. So I thought I'd start off with your impressions of the show, and not as much like what retailers need to be thinking about for their back of the house electronics or any of that. I did see some announcements from Walmart CEO talking about driverless cars and electric vehicles. But did you see, or did you get a vibe? A lot of companies, not all, like to launch their new electronics that eventually wind up on the shelves of the retailers listening. Did you see anything jump out at you? Just give me an overall vibe of the show, as if many of my listeners didn't go. Maybe walk us through what your vibe of the show was this year. Yeah.
So, and I also covered the show remotely. I decided around New Year's Eve not to go to the show in person, just to err on the side of caution. So I did cover it virtually, and I didn't find there was one big trend as we've seen in previous years, where one year it's like, okay, it's all about TVs, and another year it's like, all right, smart home gear, that's it. But it was kind of a real mix, a healthy mix of various consumer electronics trends and products to populate those trends. So some of the big ones were still home entertainment and smart home automotive tech increasingly plays a key role, maybe not as relevant to your listeners, but, over the years, car technology, including electrification and automation of vehicles continues to be a big trend. But there wasn't one, shut the front door kind of product that I would say just blew my socks off kind of thing. It was a lot more evolutionary than revolutionary this year. I don't know if that has anything to do with the pandemic, but I think just naturally in the normal sort of cycle of things, you're not going to always have earth-shattering years with new launches, but still really impressive. I mean, I think, because of COVID, a lot of people are still working from home, or it's more of a hybrid approach. Same with school. So we saw some innovations in the laptop department. We saw a lot more foldable, bendable laptop screens using OLED technology. So Asus showed their ZenBook 17. That's a 17-inch tablet essentially, but it can be folded in half to put away into your bag, or your purse. And then when it is fully opened, you can connect a Bluetooth keyboard, which you get with it, or use your fingertips or a digital pen if you like. Or it could be used like, folded in half. So like the bottom half is like flush against your desk or table, but then you have it curved up. So that's kind of like a virtual laptop, or held like a book. You're holding it like a novel and flipping through the pages with your fingertip. That was neat. And then Lenovo had this also 17-inch laptop called the ThinkBook Plus Gen 3 that has a secondary screen. So you've got the primary ultra-wide 17-inch display, which is a 21:10 aspect ratio, which is huge, but also an 8-inch touchscreen to the right of the keyboard. So that's great for multitaskers. So imagine you're on a Zoom call on the main screen. You can take notes with the digital pen, which is included on the smaller screen. And it transcribes your handwriting into text.
That's really neat because it does feel like a lot of smart people would be thinking, okay, lots of people are working or learning or playing at home, probably will not go back to the same numbers in the office. So we should probably start creating innovations for people working at home. And it's interesting listening to your description because not everybody's got a lot of space at home. Maybe they need a lot of versatility. That second screen just kind of jumps out at me.
And both of those laptops are examples of versatility for sure. And some other applications for that Lenovo with that second screen is, so one is, I said, taking notes. Another one would be if you're an accountant or a bookkeeper or even a math student, you can make that second screen a giant calculator. So it's just right off to the right of the keyboard, right? So that's where the calculator keys, the number keys usually are anyways. Or if you are a digital artist, you can use the digital pen on the, using it as a palette kind of thing. And your main screen is like your canvas. Right. Or if you put your phone, so, a Lenovo.
Or whiteboarding, right? There's some really great whiteboarding apps.
Yep. That's another
people
application.
Are using for collaborating, right?
And because Motorola is the same company, like Moto phones, whatever, they have this proprietary tech that if you move your Android or iOS device near that second screen, you can have it mirror it. So then now you can put away the phone after that and then take a call on the laptop or again, really driving home that versatility factor. So that was something I think that stood out for me this year. It's not always a big year for computers. And then with TVs, bigger, thinner, lighter, smarter, faster.
I guess the last innovation in TVs was probably 4K, right? I guess would be the last major milestone.
Yeah, there's been 8K and 16K, but there's not even content to justify that yet.
How clear does that get? I mean, I have to need eye surgery to get
I know, right? It's a good point. And I say it's too early to consider 8K. And there's a lot of 8K TVs on the market.
Really? I
still think it's worth considering. Unless you sit really close to your 4K TV, you will see some imperfections, not to the same extent as you would with an HD TV, but you will see, the pixels or whatever. But if you have an 8K, it's even better, but not worth the price, in my opinion. Not to mention, as I said, there's not a lot of 8K content shy of some YouTube videos, but it will upscale or upconvert, HD or 4K content to near 8K quality, but it's not quite the same.
Well, and it's an important time. We're talking here in late January. The Super Bowl is always a little bump up in big screen TVs, and of course, right now with folks a bit limited in their choice about what they can go outside and do entertainment, I think TV sales are having a bit of a moment yet again for the home. One last question about TVs. I'm just kind of personally curious, and I know I saw it come and go. The kind of wrap TVs, the ones that weren't flat, flush, but they kind of wrapped, and everyone's saying that was going to be the next thing, and then they disappeared. Was that just it feels like sometimes these little trends come in and they're a bit of a frill and they fall away. But you remember what I mean?
Curved TVs. They're not really available anymore. You're right. The market sort of dictated that people want flat, and they want to mount it to their wall. So you can't really mount a curved TV and have it look sort of normal. It doesn't look. I've seen someone try to do it. It doesn't look right.
It's funny how the aesthetics matter, right? When it comes to TVs, like at the end of the day, you still want. It's a piece of furniture in some ways, right? It still needs. In fact,
a lot of the TV makers are embracing this. Like, what do you do when the TV's turned off? Do you want a big black rectangle on your wall? No. Yeah. So companies like Samsung and LG have like different kinds of. They call it different things. With Samsung, the model's called the frame. Where you can even actually change the borders of the TV with these magnetic frames that affix to the four sides of the TV, even with a wood finish, if you like. And LG has the same sort of gallery vibe where it's got like real artwork on the screen in low energy mode. So it's not going to make much of an impact on your utility bill, on your hydro bill, but it makes it pretty, it makes it look like a piece of art when it's not turned on.
When it's not on.
Yeah. So I've seen that kind of thing. I've seen LG had this Objet TV, OBJET, sounds very fancy. And it covers the TV with a fabric when you're not watching it. So again,
really?
Trying to blend it to your decor. Yeah. You can even have it partially covered so you can show like traffic and like weather and time and stuff like that, news headlines, and then fully unopened is just like to look like any other TV. So they're experimenting, but yeah, you do find sometimes the TV makers want to try to give you a reason to upgrade, like 3D TV didn't take off. And I don't know if the consumer wanted that. I don't think so. I think the TV companies wanted to push that. And then similarly curved. It's nice to have options as a consumer, but that didn't last. And now you can buy, forget CES, because that's always going to be premium. But you can buy now like a 60-inch TV for under $500. That's going to be 4K with high dynamic range or HDR. It's going to have built-in smarts, downloading apps. It's amazing.
It's really amazing. Does anything surprise you that you thought would be a big trend that wasn't? So, for example, when I think of conversational commerce or Alexa in the car or any of these things, there's certainly lots of these devices in homes, but it feels like it was a big trend that never realized its fullness, and maybe it's just timing. But is there anything like that you can think of that you thought, wow, this is going to be big, this will be something, and then it just kind of fizzled out?
So no, I would actually argue that in the home, smart speakers and just using your voice as an interface has really taken off. I think Amazon just recently announced that they're almost at 250 million Alexa devices sold. So I think that just because it's the barrier, breaking down those barriers of entry, how do you interface with your tech if you're not so techy? And I think voice support, whether it's on your phone, your tablet, your laptop, your smart TV, and now your smart home devices like lighting and video doorbells and Wi-Fi thermostats, I really think it's come of age. I thought that was a game changer. When 7 years ago we saw Alexa, and then followed shortly by Google Assistant,
and Siri, of course, the old-fashioned Siri keeps coming in, right? I mean, Siri's on every device, so it's got numbers.
Siri was one of the first. Apple acquired the Nuance, like the company that was making Siri, and they were one of the first. I wrote shameless plug here, but I wrote the book Siri for Dummies, and I thought that was going to be the de facto smart assistant or virtual assistant, but that quickly became eclipsed by Google Assistant and Amazon, just a lot smarter. And Siri, I think, is still in third place.
Do you think that is the case? Because we know, and Amazon has said the case, that they track and they listen to improve how well it listens. But you are being listened to in behind the scenes, up in the cloud. Do you think, because Apple's taken a stronger stand on privacy, that it's impacted the efficiency or effectiveness of Siri?
That's a really good question, Michael. It is true that Apple, and I will give them kudos for that, maybe with the exception of the air tags, which is a bit of a privacy nightmare. But
there's a bit of a downside to those, right? People finding air tags attached to the back of their license plates. I mean,
But I think Apple, for the most part, they take privacy and security more seriously than their competitors. Yeah, so I'll give them credit where credit's due.
Yep.
And it is true that both Amazon and Google, and I think to a lesser extent Apple, but they do collect data, but it's all anonymized. So, for example, Amazon doesn't know that you, Michael, like listening to Meatloaf, but it will know what the most popular questions are that are asked, and what time of the day, and what device are you using Alexa on, and it'll be anonymized, but that data is invaluable. And I can tell you that it does get better over time. Just anecdotally, my son Ethan, my youngest, who's now 17, he's a bit of a mumbler. My wife Kelly and I are always like, "What? Say that again, clearly, please."
Low talker, I call him.
Yeah, one of low talkers for Seinfeld fans out there. Exactly. But his Alexa speaker understands him like amazingly. So what I did as an experiment was I deleted. You can do this for all your smart speakers, is you can choose to delete your data that's collected. What happened was when I did that with his Echo is when we started from scratch, it didn't understand him again until like a couple of weeks later through trial and error. It starts to understand how you say the letter A and what's your sort of cadence, and it learns all that. And then now it's like as good as it used to be, but it wasn't when I deleted all of his data. So there are some benefits to it, but anybody who's like serious about privacy will not have a smart speaker in their home. Right, it's a bit of a trade-off, convenience versus privacy, but I'm not worried. If someone wants to know that I listened to Meatloaf the day that he died, whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
Slippery slope, I guess. But.
Yeah, thin edge of the wedge or camel's nose in the tent or whatever. But I got like a half a dozen of these devices everywhere, so I find them more useful than...
I love it. As a music fan, just circling back to what I was into as a teenager, just the idea of asking for one of 70 million songs through
unbelievable, right?
Spotify or Apple Music or whatever, just by asking for it is mind-blowing, and it delivers it immediately for $10 a month or $15 a month, whatever. I think that's fantastic. And you can even say, by the way, cover version of the song or live version of the song or alternate version of that song, it's amazing. And then the AI understands what you're asking.
And people can ask to listen to your podcast too, right? That's another big thing. They could just say your name and you probably come up with
That's it. Yeah, thank choices. You. Yeah, listen to Tech It Out with Marc Saltzman. There you go. Thank you.
You're everywhere. There's the shameless
plug. Talk about shameless plugs, but you set me up for that one.
There you go. Softball for you. Let's talk about predictions for the coming year. Let's see how your crystal ball is working. Is there anything that's on your mind for 2022? We've already talked about, there's some, more and more people working at home. We've gone through this COVID era. We're not quite done it yet. That's got to change some stuff. Anything that you've seen? I mean, you have a lot of great relationships with some very international, very big electronics companies. I'm sure they share a bit of what's in the tickle trunk. What are you thinking for 2022?
Yeah. And here you are, nice enough to invite me onto your podcast that specializes in retail trends. And so I prepared this whole chat about where retail is going in the future. But I won't answer the question with that lens. But if you want to chat about that, I'd love to come back on another time. But for tech trends going forward, I think the smartphone is going to continue to be the most critical tool that we have in our arsenal. It's going to, obviously we're using it now to show our vaccine passports and all that. But I mean, 86.5% of Canadians have a smartphone. But I think that number is going to continue to climb. And if you're, south of 30, then it's like 90-something%, as you might expect. But I think that this is going to continue to be an essential tool for the next couple of years. And then what's going to happen is that we are going to start offsetting some of that sort of work that we do on our phones to wearable devices. So we are going to have more wearable, like things like glasses, smart watches, smart clothing, and like we're going to be able to rely more on things without having to hold anything. We're going to be able to access more information, have that data collected and analyzed, like your sleep tracking and all that, without needing a phone at all. Already with Apple Watch and Samsung and some other smartwatches, you don't need even to have your phone nearby anymore. If you opt for the $10 a month, eSIM, you can use your phone through a pair of wireless earbuds like Apple, AirPods Pro or Beats Fit Pro or whatever, and take a call. You can use your voice through your smart assistant to, send a text or send an email or add to a calendar appointment. Whatever, stream music. So I think we're going to rely, but we're still climbing as far as the importance of the phone and market share. And then it's going to start to decline as we diversify that kind of those applications. We're going to use more. And I think another trend I would expect is still early days is the metaverse isn't just hype. I do think that even though it's going to be a little bit farther than a year from now, we are going to start seeing this continued blur between the digital and the physical.
You think there's a there when it comes to the metaverse?
Oh, yeah.
Well, it is a universe-sized question. Thank you for offering to come back on. We'll get you back on a bit later in the season.
That was kind of presumptuous of me, by the way. But
No. Listen, I'd love to have you back on. Okay, last quick question. Any tech at home you can't do without? I mean, when we think about, you talk about smart speakers, is there anything that jumps out that you go like, you cannot take this away from me? What comes to mind?
That's easy. My iPad. And that's a device that I really questioned if I needed it before it came out. So in 2010, go back, 12 years, when Apple unveiled this, I was like, doesn't this seem redundant to anybody? Don't we already have a smartphone and a laptop? So why do we need something kind of in the middle in terms of size and price and applications? But this is the one device that if you took it away from me, I would be very upset. I'm a big reader. I love to read. So that's my go-to on my Kobo app on my iPad. Not for reading outside, I should caveat, but inside. I play games on it. I stream video to it. And when I'm not streaming video to it, I'm pushing it to my smart TV. So last night, my wife and I were like, hey, you want to watch something? I'm like, yeah, I've got it on my iPad. So I just tapped it and then it wireless, I casted it to my TV. I read my news on it. I write notes during meetings on it. I use it as a recorder. I use it as a camera, a video camera. Like that to me, I love the larger form factor. I know a smartphone can do virtually all that. But I like my 10-inch iPad, I have to say. And I'm not an Apple fanboy. I actually use an Android smartphone and a Windows PC. But I love my iPad. I love the App Store. I love how reliable and like the OS is just rock solid. I use my iPad more than any other device for play, for communication, for work. Love it.
All right. Well, my guest is Marc Saltzman. You heard it here, and you can hear Marc across the world practically. Any particular place you want to call out? I'll put lots of links in the show notes.
Oh, it's so nice of you again,
Any
Michael.
place you want to call out to follow you on Twitter? What are they?
Yeah, sure. If your listeners are on social media, it's Marc Saltzman, Marc with a C, SALTZMAN. I write a tech tip of the day. I link to my articles, video interviews, my podcasts. There's giveaways, all that kind of stuff. And I'm on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube.
All right, fantastic. Well, Marc, thanks again for joining me on The Voice of Retail. We got to get you back. There's lots going on.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you so much. Have a good one. All the best.
Thanks for tuning into this special episode of The Voice of Retail. If you haven't already, be sure and click and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so new episodes will land automatically twice a week. And check out my other retail industry media properties, the Remarkable Retail Podcast, Conversations with Commerce Next Podcast, and the Food Professor Podcast with Dr. Sylvain Charlebois. Last but not least, if you're into barbecue, check out my all-new YouTube barbecue show, Last Request Barbecue, with new episodes each and every week. I'm your host, Michael LeBlanc, president of M.E. LeBlanc Company and Maven Media. And if you're looking for more content or want to chat, follow me on LinkedIn or visit my website at meleblanc.co. Have a safe week, everyone.